Heart of Law podcast. My name is Mirena Umizaj Dumas, and I'm your host. I am so excited about today's episode for a number of reasons, and you guys will see why. My guest is Sara Papantonio with Levin Papantonio Law Firm here in Florida. Sara is an attorney at Levin Papantonio and focuses her practice on mass torts. She graduated from the University of North Carolina with a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and Journalism. She then received her Juris Doctorate from Stetson University College of Law in 2020, graduating cum laude. Sara litigates pharmaceutical, environmental, mass tort, and personal injury cases all over this country. She has experience in federal court as an active and central member of several mass tort litigation teams. She's currently working on Camp Lejeune and infant formula MDL. Sara, thank you for accepting my invite. It is a pleasure to have you on the Heart of Law podcast. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I feel it's such a privilege to be on this.
You're very kind. Thank you. No, I've been wanting to have you on for some time, but I feel like timing is perfect because so much has happened this past year, hasn't it?
It is. It has been a year of ups and downs for me, but we are ending on a career high. So I am very excited to be here sharing it with kind of a win under my belt as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to get into it with you. So, for some context for our audience, I first met Sara at Mass Tort Made Perfect. Of course, she was there when she graduated law school and immediately began to just understand, get into how the mass tort world works. She was in speaking engagements. She was talking to both attorneys and resources that come to Mass Tort Made Perfect to provide different services. Very friendly, very kind. And that's where we had our initial conversation and meeting. And then I'd reached out to Sara when I came across Camp Lejeune. And I had asked Sara to get involved, to get her firm involved at the time. And after some healthy skepticism from her, Sara and her law firm joined the litigation in a very big way. Today, they are on the PC of Camp Lejeune, and Sara is very involved, and we'll talk a little bit more about her role and how she sees this litigation, which is currently very active and not resolved. The other thing about Sara is that I find her to be truly very authentic, especially as she steps into this arena, the world, the tough world of mass torts, to continue her firm's legacy, her family's legacy, but really just to make a name for herself and showcase her talent. So I'm very excited to have you on to sort of explore your journey, Sara, and your evolution. And so I want to pull back the curtains a little bit. I want the audience to really get to know you, the person, and then the attorney. My first question is, looking back, what was the moment that made you think and decide you wanted to go to law school?
It's a great question, and it's one that everyone has just, because I'm in a family of lawyers. I always joke that I was raised by plaintiffs lawyers, not wolves. But really, I always knew that I was well situated to be a lawyer. I had the personality type. I had kind of the stage presence, right? I had the mind to be a lawyer. But it was not until law school that I decided that this was the type of law, mass torts law, is what I wanted to be doing, right? I promised myself throughout college, throughout law school, that I was not going to be the Nepo baby. I was not going to go back and work for dad. I was going to pave my own way, create my own life, and pick my own type of law. But throughout kind of law school, as I was making the decision of what type of law do I want to be practicing, really interesting cases were evolving in the mass tort space. We were talking primarily the opioid litigation, right? And I had the opportunity to intern for one summer on the opioid litigation and really play a vital role in the case theory and in the document review and the deposition prep. And I realized just what an impact I, as just one person, could have on a huge population of people and kind of the culture in America. And that was when I made the decision okay, mass torts is certainly the area of law that I know I want to be working in, because you can do so much good And it's exciting. It's just really exciting. And so I think to answer your question, I always knew that law was going to be my career path, but never understood that mass torts is where I would fit in best.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say you were fighting that. You didn't just want to go work, at 11 Pap and you wanted to do it your way. But then you realize, wait a second, maybe dad is actually working on some really cool
Yeah.
projects. Let me
Maybe
check it
I
out.
kind of like this.
I have a daughter in college, as I've shared with you, and she wants to study pre-law and she likes what I do, even though she's still trying to understand what I do. And so she wants to go to law school. And as a parent now, I feel the butterflies, this excitement that if she was to join me in my profession, how cool that would be that I could get to do that with my daughter. So I assume there's some of that dynamic playing between you and Pat, but since a lot of people know Mike Papantonio and know Master Made Perfect, give us a flavor of who is he, both at work and at home, and how has your relationship changed since you joined the firm?
Yeah, it has been so interesting in my 5 year career at law, getting to know Pap, right? Getting to know this iconic Mike Papantonio because it's not the person who raised me. It's not the person I knew growing up. And Pap, right, is exactly what everyone sees. He is an incredible force, an incredible visionary, someone who's so passionate about this area of law and the people that we're helping. And so to get to know that person in as a lawyer in my career has been an honor and a privilege. And I've loved every second of it. It's been interesting, right? Because now I have to have conversations with him as my boss, which I'm not used to, rather than my father. But we have really grown well together in this space. And I think if your daughter goes into law, it's such an incredible compliment to you, just like it is to him that we get to do this together. I get to learn from him, I get to learn with him. And he has really done an incredible job allowing me to forge my own way, right? And giving me the opportunities to make a name for myself so that I don't just bear this shadow of Pap everywhere I go. And I'm really grateful for that because I will push him aside as needed as I'm kind of growing and learning in this space. But I've truly loved working with him. You couldn't have a better mentor in
Yeah.
this area.
Do you guys have conflict ever or tension about what's going on?
I think we both have very similar personality types, so our methods of communication get interesting. And in my 5 years of experience, think that I just know everything there is to know at times. And so I think I'm the one person in the space who's not afraid to push back at things that he says, and he's sometimes surprised by that. But it really makes for good, healthy discussions. I really wouldn't say we butt heads frequently at all. It's more we work very well parallel to each other. And I think the benefit of that, and for anyone who has children in the space, is we work parallel, not on top of each other. In other words, I'm not reporting directly to him, so I don't feel like I'm suffocated by my dad, father, boss. We are just working together alongside each other. And I think that's been the key point in preserving our relationship at work as well as keeping our relationship and dynamic as father and daughter because it gets stronger as the years go by and the more I get to learn.
Yeah. And so there's also like the law firm, but then there was the Mass Tort Made Perfect platform, right? And is he involved and engaged in both, you know, full force? I'm curious to know because I actually don't really know. Or is he more behind the scenes on the business of law side? And where do you find like you have more common ground? Is it on
Uh,
the litigation side or the business side?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I think it's kind of evolved over the last few years just as he's determining what he wants to be doing in this space. The man will never retire, but I think he certainly wants to slow down. But no, the amazing thing about Mike is Pap is he's an incredible visionary. He's never going to stop pushing the fold and pushing how we practice in unique and innovative ways. Really, his involvement is dependent on the cases that are out there and if he's excited about those cases. And usually, when we're dealing with cases involving social issues, he is at the forefront. He wants to be right on top of it, pitching it, promoting it, getting people involved in it. So from an MTMP perspective, he is very much active in determining what we're moving at MTMP, as well as at the law firm, right? He from a business perspective, we have to keep the lights on here and we have to help other mass torts firms around the country continue to push forward and find new cases and kind of win cases. So no, he's still playing an active role, but I think in these next couple of years you're going to see him pivoting more towards his role as an author because he really is writing incredible books, and all of those books are centered around the types of cases that we're dealing with on a regular basis. So he's really enjoying that path and he gets to relax a little bit more and be more creative, but still stay with a foot in the door and know what's going on.
So as he slows down, are you going to speed up or what's the plan?
I feel like I'm going pretty fast right now. So no, it's not one or the other really. It's he continues to support me as I continue to get opportunities to learn more and do more in this space. I'm definitely the type of person who loves to volunteer and loves taking on new cases. Every time you call me, it's like Christmas because it means that something exciting is going on or you've got a great cause that you want to pitch to me and
Yeah.
so no, I'm really energized still by the profession, by the job. He just continues to support me in that way.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So your focus is to really work on the cases, to litigate the cases. You don't really necessarily have an interest to run the business side of things. Is that right?
I think that's fair. And I think as I kind of look at my career in tranches, right? I've just hit my 5 year mark. So that's the time when you're really kind of supposed to understand what's going on. So the last 5 years, I have been really focused on diving into understanding the litigation, understanding a mass tort case from beginning to end, from client management to trial to depositions, everything there is to know. I want to know how to do it. And now I am trying to expand and shift my focus into understanding now the business side of it. Okay, once we have a mass torts, how do we keep a law firm running? How do we plan for our future? And that's very nuanced. It's very difficult. And that's where I lean on you a lot for your advice on, how to pick the right cases, but how to create a sustainable law firm. And they're two drastically different skills. As I move into my next kind of decade, gonna try to learn how to do that more. I don't think I'll ever be the smartest one in the room with that. But it's really just what I try to do is learn as much as possible with what I've
Mhm.
got in front of me.
I mean, it's the thing is, the way mass torts has been 5 years ago is completely different from what it is today and from what it will be in 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think for everybody that is in the business, it's sort of an unknown territory. That's what's exciting about mass torts, right? And I know that we've talked about this before, that you've never recommended a law firm to just solely focus on like mass torts, put all their money in mass torts, refer their cases, and then just wait for a paycheck, right? This is a tough business, and there is not only the litigation aspect, the defendants, the clients, the sheer number sometimes of people that you're representing, but it's also the politics within the business itself on our side, right? So it is evolving, it's nuanced, it's unknown. And, some people come in very naive thinking this is how you get rich. And we've seen a lot of those people actually get hurt by that kind of mentality. So even though you've only been in the business 5 years, you've seen enough to know the
Mhm.
kind of approach somebody should be taking, a plaintiff firm should be taking to master cases. Can you speak more to that? And sort of what is your advice for firms that look at mass torts as the next big thing?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's mass torts can be relatively unpredictable in if you're looking at it in a 2 to 3 year window. When you look at mass torts, you have to look now at 7 to 10 years ahead. And that's difficult if you're looking at your business model and how you're going to keep the lights on for the next 5 years. It's hard to predict 5 to 10 years in advance. And then added onto that, it's there's multiple layers of, well, you can have the perfect case, but you can have a bad jurisdiction, or you can have a bad ruling, or there's so many moving parts. And then on top of that, it's the politics of getting involved in mass torts, because we're a small knit community, and sometimes it is hard to break into. But I do think what it boils down to, if you are someone who knows you want to be in this space and involved in these types of cases, but you don't want to get burned, or you don't want to have to sift through the politics, it truly boils down to the relationships that you have and the authenticity of the person that you're working with. Because I think I think no one will disagree with me. There are some untrustworthy people in this business, just like there are in every business, just like you would expect to see. But to have a partner to navigate this with, right? Like someone like you, is so important. Someone that you can trust, and someone that who can advise you on actually seeing the forest through the trees is important. And I think if you have that, then you have a better chance of surviving all of these nuances and all of these variables, because you've got someone in your camp who can support you, who can advise you and move you in what looks to be the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think knowing what the past has been like definitely helps somebody make better decisions going forward. But as we talk about, people should not put all their eggs in one basket with mass torts, because it ebbs and flows and it's getting taking longer and longer for these payouts. I believe your firm, the majority of what you guys do is mass torts, correct?
It is, which is very rare though. And the only reason we're able to do that is because we have been in this space for so long. I think the model that makes more sense is having a larger percentage of your day-to-day practice being a personal injury practice, an employment practice, a family law practice, so that you have that consistent income and ability to keep the lights on. And then slowly, as you're moving into the mass tort space, you are taking a bigger portion every couple years and making mass torts a bigger portion of your practice, rather than just going all in all at once, which I don't think is the right metric here. Is playing it smart and slowly expanding your mass torts practice as new cases come on to the scene and as old cases resolve.
It's also tricky because a lot of firms are passive in mass torts. They're investing. And who they invest in, or who they do the investments with, whether it's the advertiser or the law firm that they partner with, has everything to do with the success and the outcome of those cases. Do you think law firms, attorneys should just learn how to practice in the mass tort arena and try to bring their skill set? Or is it still best to just find the right partnership and refer those cases out?
I think it's entirely dependent on what your appetite is. When I talk to people, new type of law firms who want to get involved in mass torts, really the conversation I have with them is we have to evaluate, one, what your risk profile is. How
Mhm.
much are you willing to risk? And then two, what you want your involvement to be. If you don't want to have to think about your mass tort cases and be a totally passive investor, there's an opportunity for you to do that. But let's say you actually do want to learn and grow in this space. There are law firms who will grant you those opportunities and will take you along with them, show you the ropes, and teach you how to evolve in this space. And it is up to the person who wants to be involved. But
Yeah.
I would always recommend learning how the mass tort space works, because we need as many soldiers as possible in this. There's never going to be enough help. There's never going to be enough minds together. So always try to expand your knowledge. I think the passive role is never the smart role, because you can be taken advantage of. And if you don't have the right partner, then it really can turn you away from this type of law. So always learning the ropes of mass torts, I think, is important. You'll never feel like you have a grasp of it. I don't think anyone does, but be more of an active investor in your own cases.
Can someone try to get involved in mass torts, but instead of maybe going down the path of the MDL, really tries to stay, have control over the litigation, their cases, and still do it with other law firms without getting sucked into the politics and just all the things that sometimes go wrong or can sour somebody from being in mass torts. What do you think a good strategy would be to enter if somebody has a good case or they think that there is a good case out there and they want to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I think it has kind of multiple answers, primarily going back to make sure you're partnering with someone you trust, partnering with someone who can advise you, partnering with someone who has seen the ups and downs of mass tort cases. But then to really enter into this space, I think there's one way to do it where you identify a new mass tort, right? You have a client come to you that maybe they've taken a bad product, maybe they've used a bad device, and you discover it, so to speak. That's a great way to really break in. Now that perfect case doesn't necessarily fall on everyone's lap. So the other ways to do that is to figure out one, what is the filing strategy of that case you're looking at? Is it filed in federal court? Is it filed in a state court JCCP? Or are we just filing individual cases on or around those filings? And I think if you play it smart, you can find a good avenue where you can learn alongside an MDL. And maybe you're filing in state court and you're putting pressure on the MDL, but you're also utilizing the resources of the MDL. Maybe you're filing in a consolidated state court action. Or maybe you're filing with the MDL and that you're working with leadership to take depositions and work up bellwether clients. So it's really kind of assessing the field and understanding where you sit based on the cases you currently have and making a decision from there.
In the 5 years that you've been doing this, what do you identify as a negative in the profession, maybe more specifically in mass torts?
I mean, mass torts is a great space to be in, but it's a very, very difficult space to work in. From a personal perspective, you are devoting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours of your time towards these cases, and it can be really demanding on your life, in terms of work-life balance. You have to really be able to control your ability to turn off work when work needs to be turned off. But then from a global perspective, I think the thing that scares people most about mass torts is just the variability, right? The uncertainty of whether a project is going to be successful or not. Because, like we talked about earlier, we can predict and we can analyze and we can believe that a project will be successful for all of these reasons or not successful for all of these reasons. But honestly, 50% of the time, we're very surprised by the outcome. So I think it's the lack of control that we have over some of these variables in mass torts that can be viewed as a huge negative. But it goes to the fact that if you are breaking into this, that you have to diversify the cases that you get involved with, because not all cases are going to be successful, but when they are successful, it is very much worth your time and your energy and your devotion to them because successes are extraordinary.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think it's a high risk, high reward type of business. And I think that's what's, for me personally, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a consultant. I do completely different things from what you do. But I love the fact that it is sort of, there is no ceiling. Like anything can happen. The wins can be extraordinary. But the higher the highs, the lower the lows. And if you don't have the stomach for the lows, you should not be in mass torts. And I have seen in my, 15 years of doing this, I have seen 95%, I think, of the people that came into mass torts, whether they're like, I want to be involved in some fashion, made an investment, want to figure out how to break into the business, those people have left. And that's why it's interesting when you go to these conferences, Mass Tort Made Perfect being one of them, you will see a handful of faces and law firms that show up every single year, and they are committed to the game in a sense, and they understand the rules of the game. So unless you're willing to go into mass torts and learn the rules of the game, I'd say learn the rules of the game before you get involved in a project.
Mm-hmm.
You might love the case and you may think this case is definitely going to pay and maybe it's going to pay fast. But if you don't know the rules of the game, chances are you will be disappointed because there is so many moving parts to your point, and nothing goes as scheduled as predicted. So yeah, to your point, I think just, become knowledgeable about what you're getting involved in.
Yeah. To that point, I do what I have always found about the mass tort space is that we have a tendency to have this group think mentality that if one person is doing it, then I have to do it as well.
Yeah.
And it's become such a fatal flaw of this type of work because it's like, well, if Levin Papantonio jumps off a bridge, I'm gonna jump off a bridge with him without really making educated decisions of does this case fit my business model? Does this case make sense from a causation standpoint? I do think a lot of new lawyers come into this and they just think that they don't know because they haven't been involved, but they forget that they have a brain and
Mhm.
have a lifetime of education and can really evaluate these cases for themselves and make a judgment call yourself. And you
Yeah.
don't have to jump off the bridge with us too if you don't think it's the right call. And
Yeah.
so it's really just it's empowering people to actually to look at the cases independently and make a decision for themselves.
Yeah. And in that vein, I sort of want to segue into a recent major win that your firm and some other firms had in a talc case, in a talc trial. It was a wonderful outcome for the client. It was a $20 million verdict for, I believe, a talc mesothelioma case.
Mm-hmm.
And you were part of that team. And so when I saw the news and I saw that you were part of that team, I was so excited because I knew when you start to see these wins in real time, right? And it is empowering. It gives you the hope, the imagination, the desire, the adventurous soul to just keep on going. So tell me about this experience. Tell me about this case, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, yeah. So I am coming off of an 8-week trial. You can probably see the bag still under my eyes. That I helped Chris TC with our law firm and John Ustall out of Fort Lauderdale with. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience, incredible victory, and a wonderful trial team to be working with. I'm most grateful for that. And the unique kind of my unique role in it was I played no role in the talc litigation prior to that. I got a call from Chris TC a week before he was leaving for trial and just said, Sara, I need help. I need support on this
Mhm.
trial. Will you come help us? And of course, I said yes. I mean, I love the opportunity to go to trial and really quickly had to learn the case, had to understand decades worth of science and documents from Johnson and Johnson, but was able to pick it up very quickly. And I think as a side note, coming into a case like that, really with no institutional knowledge of what that case is about,
Mhm.
was very much a pro for me because I was able to see the case in real time as it was being presented to the jury by Chris and John
Yeah.
and really understand, okay, this point really resonated with me. I can see it resonated with them. And so sometimes I think as lawyers, we've just become so focused on, the decades that we've been working that case up that we can't take a step back and say, okay, this is important, this is not important. So I
Yeah.
think I think my role in the trial became very vital because I was just able to kind of consult and advise them of here's what I think is important, here's what I think is a great storyline for the jury, and we were able to go based on that. But it working with TC and Ustall was just a great experience for me.
That's amazing. I totally believe that a fresh mind, one that's not been tired and bogged down by, the past and losses and failures and rejections and all the things that sometimes that's what's needed to be able
Mhm.
to push through. And so I think what a great skill for them to identify that they needed other people with that kind of perspective as part of the team. I love that. So specifically about talc, and I don't know how much of it you can or want to go into it, but I'm curious because these talc cases have been around for so long, and there are so many law firms with hundreds of or thousands of talc cases and no resolution in sight. We know what Johnson and Johnson has been up to. It's been incredibly difficult to reach any kind of settlement with them, global settlement. How do you think this case could potentially affect some of those cases, or does it not move the needle at all?
I think it certainly does. And just to kind of posture this, our firm has been primarily involved with the ovarian side of the talc litigation. This case was dealing with a mesothelioma case. And there has been several cases, several plaintiffs' victories on the mesothelioma side. And those cases, I think, we could call them more advanced in state court because they're trying them once a month at this point. And the plaintiffs who are trying those cases are getting great victories. But I do think our involvement having a mesothelioma case was important because none of the plaintiffs' leadership group on the ovarian side has really gotten the opportunity to try a case in front of J&J's counsel, right? They've only been focused on those mesothelioma cases. And so this was really the start and the snowball of J&J getting to see the plaintiff's leadership coming out of the talc MDL actually trying and winning these cases. And I think that's important because I do think that Johnson and Johnson walked into our trial totally expecting to win it, expecting it to be a breeze because we weren't the typical trial team that they had been seeing previously. We didn't know the case as well as the previous trial teams. And I think they thought they could take advantage of that, but it's clear they couldn't. So you will start to see a snowball effect of as these talc trials are happening in state court, and there's actually one that's going on right now in California, and there'll be several more. I would like to believe there'll be added pressure on Johnson and Johnson to move for resolution, but it is very clear that Johnson and Johnson is just taking a stand on resolution in these cases, but I simply don't know how much longer they can hold out because these verdicts are just getting more and more monumental and stacked against them that
Yeah.
they cannot ignore this for much
Yeah.
longer.
What do you think this teaches plaintiff law firms and defense firms about managing, just in general, long tail exposure cases and product liability risk in these large scale mass tort environments? Like, what do you think is the message?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and it teaches the importance of having multiple layers and multiple strategies of how to resolve these cases and how to attack these cases. You know, our firm traditionally is only an MDL firm. We really only operate in federal court. This case was a state court case in Broward County that someone had referred to us and someone had asked us to help them try. So ordinarily we wouldn't be trying state court cases, but you do see the value in putting pressure on the defendants from every angle. You know, the MDL track is not the only track, and it's not the most important track sometimes. Sometimes you have a lot of power and a lot of pressure coming from the state court litigations and the JCCPs and the consolidations or the one-off cases filed. So I do think when you take a step back and you look at the posture and where everything is filed against J&J now, they have just mountains and mountains of pressure against them. So much so that they've got several different trial teams that they have all over the country fighting these cases. So you can really see the power of everyone working together and putting pressure on these corporations from different angles.
Yeah. Does this change anything about how your firm views MDL and whether or not you guys also have cases in state court more often?
I think it is a case by case basis. I think our firm will always continue to push and promote the federal track and MDL track, but we're not naive enough to not understand that in order to get resolution in these cases, you have to have pressure points, right, from
Yeah.
every angle. And so I think if anything, it expands our understanding and our knowledge of working with folks who only focus on state court strategies and seeing the value in those relationships moving forward.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So we are recording this podcast in November, and the next Mass Sort Made Perfect is in April of 2026. What is going on in Mass Torts that is exciting that people should be looking forward to and go to Mass Tort Made Perfect to learn more about?
Yeah, I had to miss Masters Made Perfect in October for this trial. So I'm looking forward to April because it's just really a great program from a relationship and networking perspective. And I think, you know, there's not as much as we're used to in terms of new cases out there, but there's still so much value in connecting with people like Mirena, right? And if, for anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you have not had a face-to-face conversation with her, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. I just have to say that I was thinking back is I have to credit Mirena for a lot of the positions that I currently have and a lot of the opportunities that I currently have because she's a real connector and networker. And to even be able to go to MTMP and have 10 minutes, 15 minutes to talk with you, it makes the whole trip worth it, candidly. But so I do think that that is the value is to be able to discuss the framework and path forward of mass torts at the next April MTMP will be very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I think also what sometimes is missed that even people that don't think they know a whole lot about mass torts could be sitting on something that they're not even aware of,
Yeah.
right? A lot of these cases have come out of thin air that nobody thought there could be. Like nobody thought. I remember Steve Reck with NEC when he started a neck project and litigation. Like he didn't think that was an MDL. That wasn't even in his, realm of possibilities and the fact that it took the kind of shape that it did and what that means today is unbelievable. So I think one of the things that I ask a lot of attorneys at these conferences is tell me about a unique project that you're working on or that you've come across that you either couldn't pursue for whatever reason, but you just knew that there was something there. You just didn't peel back all the layers. So I think that's the fun part about this business is there are cases and there are social issues everywhere. We all know that. Who is willing to actually take the time and to really understand, is there a case here? Can I bring this to Sara? Can I bring this to Mirena? Maybe just brainstorm and see if something cool can come. I mean, I have those conversations. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just always like, oh,
Mhm.
tell me more about this case. Do you think this could be a bigger case than just a single event case you're working on?
Yeah.
So I think just asking the right questions. But to your point, this business ebbs and flows. And right now it seems like we're in a slow timeline, not timeline, but slow sort of pace of the kinds of cases that are active. But tell me what is active? Like what's actually going on in mass torts with the existing cases? Like maybe a quick status update on Camp Lejeune or NEC or anything that, or opioids if that's not completely wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a lot going on with Camp Lejeune. I think there's going to be a lot of activity by next year. Essentially, the federal court judges have given us a timeline of, hey, this has to be resolved by next year. And I know that the PLC is in active negotiations with the DOJ on that. So I think we'll see a bunch of movement with Camp Lejeune next year. You are seeing a lot of resolution with some of the smaller cases, like Paraquat. I think we'll see some information coming out of by April we'll know more about Depo-Provera. So there is going to be a lot of activity, a lot of movement, a lot of updates that are very important to you in your cases that you'll need to hear about. But there is always something going on and there is always something to be done. So
Yeah, agreed, agreed. Not to mention it's Las Vegas.
yeah.
Get away from your routine and meet your friends and colleagues and have a nice dinner. It's a nice way to break the routine. I always enjoy it. And I bring my whole family now.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
son is 6 and his favorite place is Las Vegas. So he thinks the casinos are,
Start them young.
yes. So, okay, switching gears a bit. Let's talk about the business and the courtroom. If you had to choose at this point in time, do you think you would find sort of more fulfillment litigating these cases, or do you think you would be better just, navigating and understanding the business of law and positioning yourself to be able to make some decisions as the firm continues to evolve? And the follow-up question to that is, are you planning to take the law firm internationally?
Yeah, so I mean that's an easy answer for me is I absolutely want to be a litigator. I know I need to understand the business of law and I'm really making active steps to understand it, but I do you could not waste my time with how much these cases cost, what these settlements are going to look like, how we run the business. It doesn't make a sense. Doesn't make any sense to me. But I do love to litigate. I love to be in front of a jury. I love to be talking with people, and that's truly what I want to be doing. And so I am really actively trying to enhance those skills and get as much opportunity to litigate as I can. In terms of kind of where we take the law firm moving forward is, I mean, I'm still associate here. I don't have much decision making power, but I do think that that landscape has always been interesting to us. And the unique part about going international, and I know a lot of firms are looking in the Netherlands and the UK because their system of law is about 5 to 10 years behind us in terms of mass torts, right? So the types of cases that they're pursuing. And there's really a lot of opportunity over there for firms like ours to teach law firms in Europe how to run these types of cases and where the hot docs are and where the pressure points are for each corporation. So I think we will always be an ally to the law firms over there, but I'm not quite sure we've made a decision of whether to fully engage over there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it is very different in at least
Yeah.
in Europe compared to here. So I think it is a big leap, but I think it opens up so many opportunities that don't currently exist. So you never know. I think it would be cool to have to do some conferences in Europe. I'm not.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind that. I'll certainly attend.
Um, so Sarah, just asking you personally, do you feel that, if somebody is graduating law school and they're interested in mass torts, they find this area fascinating, or just, litigating in general, what is some advice to the young generations of attorneys that are coming into the space? What would you say to them?
I think my best advice for someone who's currently in law school is make as many mistakes in law school as possible. And by that, I mean get on your feet as much as you possibly can. Do the trial advocacy classes, do oral arguments as often as you can so that you can make as many mistakes in law school where it really doesn't have that much of an effect on you, so, except for your grade, but that's fine. And you can really learn and build the foundation of skills that you need when you become a young associate. And that way you've already made those mistakes. You've gotten that stuff out of the way and you can really show your talent and your skill as a young associate. I really challenged myself in law school and kind of put myself out there and was able to kind of work through all of my bad habits, I guess, as a speaker, as a writer, as just a baby lawyer. And I'm really grateful for that. And then, for those who are looking to enter the mass tort space as a young lawyer, I welcome you with open arms. I think the plaintiff's bar in mass torts does a really bad job of recruiting young talent because we are often losing out to kind of the corporation and their hiring practice. And I just hate that. And I really want to change the way we do that. And I think we're making strides with that. MTMP actually has something called a fellows program where we're bringing in law students and teaching them about mass torts and getting them on their feet and teaching them trial advocacy skills in hopes that they will now see this as an opportunity for them right outside of law school rather than go work for Johnson and Johnson for 10 years and then maybe come to the plaintiff's bar after that. So I think we as a profession need to do a better job of empowering young lawyers and giving them the opportunities to come work in this space and shine in this space. So that's my goal.
Yeah. I've talked to a few young attorneys, and some of the concerns that I think they've expressed is that it's a very cliquey business, they think, from their point of view and what they've heard. You have to know people to get in the door, to get in to work with law firms that do, trial work and things of that nature. It doesn't hurt to try to knock on the door and see what happens, right? So I've always said, don't let what other people tell you determine whether or not you get into a space or put yourself out there because you just never know. You have your
Yeah, absolutely.
have your
Sun
own.
in my way.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think technology and AI and all these different things that are happening sort of on the tech side and the business side are going to change the mass tort world as we know it? Have you seen
Um,
anything?
no, no. I think they will enhance them significantly. I think they will open more opportunities. So I think they make me more efficient, certainly, which then gives me more opportunities to do more. It's just a matter of maximizing the technology and the AI that you have in front of you without it becoming a crutch, right? The second it becomes a crutch for us is the second that it becomes our demise. But I really utilize as much as I possibly can, trying to figure out what are the new AI technologies out there? What should I be doing to be better? And I've found that it's really, really aided my not, work.
Yeah. So is there any particular program, company that you're using that you find it's really elevating the way things are being done in your firm?
I wouldn't pinpoint one. We use several. We have medical record reviews. That's been hugely helpful, especially when it comes to rolling out settlements. Those medical review platforms are better than a lot of my litigation assistants, so I've been very impressed by that. We utilize a lot during trial when it comes down to just we need to find the document that says this in a matter of 30 seconds. That's very helpful as well. And then document discovery platforms as well have been able to now ultimately complete tier one doc review, which ordinarily would take 100 reviewers. The
Yeah.
AI is able to code documents better than a lot of tier one reviewers. So that I think is a really important asset for us is the doc review aspect.
Yeah. Wow. I'm fascinated. I see that people are paying more attention and are actually bringing in more vendors to provide some of those services. But I also find that a lot of people have resistance to change. They're scared of what could happen in the next few years with this with AI. But that's just like anything else, right? You have to embrace it, and if you don't, it will scare you. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are using a lot of the tech that's available out there. So what else? What else is there that you could share with our audience that, is always sort of on the sidelines, kind of watching what goes on in mass torts? They don't necessarily are not part of it, but they're always curious about it. Is there anything else the audience should know?
I think if you're curious about it, if you're on the sidelines, then honestly come to MTMP. That is the best way to figure out whether you want to be a part of this or not. And
Yeah.
if you go to MTMP and you decide it's not for me, at least you went to Vegas for a couple days and you had some fun and you had some good conversation.
Mhm.
But I think the fear to act is always what holds people back and just take the first step. But also, again, the theme of this is relationships and good partners. Make sure the person that you're working with, the person you're talking with, that you trust their advice, right? And that they're a good partner to have here. And I think once you've found good partners in this business, those people will take care of you. They will carry you through your career. And you'll be able to feel a lot more comfortable entering this space than you would just independently.
Yeah. It's great advice. And it's very true, really just in every aspect of your life. So
Mhm.
it's not just entering mass torts, it's just figuring out what is something that scares you and actually putting yourself out there, overcome it, and then realize it's not that bad. And that there's
Yeah.
really good people everywhere, just like there is bad people everywhere. So, well, thank you. It's been really fun to have you on. Again, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, super um just excited for you because I feel like I've been watching you from the beginning evolve and make your own path, and I'm excited for your future and where you take things. So keep doing what you do, and also congrats on being engaged. And I know that you're gonna, tie the knot soon, right?
Yeah. Wedding in 6 months.
Six
Well, like it's June of next year. So soon.
Soon, very soon. So congratulations, Sarah, and thanks for being a guest on this podcast. And I look forward to seeing you in April in Vegas.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.